Today, I'm going over 25 things only old Bloxburg players remember. You guys seem to enjoy the previous one, so now we're going over 25 more. Before the video starts, if you could subscribe and help me get to my goal of 150,000 subscribers, I would really appreciate it. But with that being said, let's start off with number 1. Back when Bloxburg first released, people would create sidewalks outside of their house by placing walls, then using the automatic floor feature to place a floor. They would then delete the walls and have a sidewalk. This was a really smart way to place sidewalks, but the funny part is that it was not smart. Manual floor placement was already a thing when Bloxburg released, which meant placing walls to create sidewalks was just wasting your money. But since the game was brand new, I doubt many people knew how to use it. One of the least popular jobs in Bloxburg is the janitor job. The reason why it's not popular is because it used to pay a very low amount of money, which made it pointless to work at. But what if I told you when Bloxburg first released, this job was even less popular? That's because it didn't exist. If you went behind the hair salon back then, instead of the green clean building, there would just be a fence. Today, Bloxburg uses R15, which animates your Roblox avatar and makes it look very realistic. R15 has multiple limbs, such as hands, lower arms, upper arms, and many other parts. But back in 2016, Bloxburg used R6. R6 is a lot less detailed. You were only made up of 6 parts, which meant walking looked blocky and really funny. Swimming was also really funny because you would just kick your legs really hard and barely use your arms. Now, swimming looks a lot more realistic, which is definitely better. Today, when you go to the nightclub and order grape juice, it will come in a glass cup like this. But a few years ago, if you bought this same drink, it would be in a wine glass. I'm guessing they changed the glass to make it a bit more family friendly, but it's still cool to see how many items in the game have progressed over time. Moods are very important in Bloxburg, because if you don't keep them up, you make less money, walk slower, and have a huge stink cloud around you. But the stink cloud we have today is way better than the stink cloud we used to have. As you can see, if you stood still, the cloud was definitely a lot bigger. But if you started walking, the cloud would turn into a trail. This trail could get really long, and if multiple people with stink clouds were in the same room together, everything would be green. There weren't any flies in the old stink cloud though, so I guess that's a positive. Number 6 is also mood related. As of 0.12.6, the lowest mood status is critically low moods. But in 2016, there were 2 mood statuses that have since been removed. Filthy was the first status, and it meant that you stunk and needed to get your hygiene up. And the other mood status, which used to be the lowest status, was called Walking Dead. You received this status by having all of your moods at 0%. The Walking Dead status was probably removed due to some sort of copyright issue, but the Filthy status was renamed to Stinky, which I guess is a friendlier way to say get your hygiene up, but I feel like the game calling you filthy was a lot funnier. The cashier and stalker jobs were not a thing when Bloxburg released, but the supermarket building did exist. You couldn't go inside it though because the entrance was blocked off and there was a sign that said opening soon. If you need to go to the main menu, you have to wait a long, dreadful 17 seconds to get through the loading screen. But in 2016, you didn't have to wait at all. That's because there was no loading screen. If you press the main menu button, the main menu would just pop up without any kind of animation, which meant you could show off all of your plots really fast. Bloxburg vehicle mechanics are really good because they have working suspension and good handling, but if you played before 0.6.0a, you would have a very different driving experience. There was no suspension, which meant if you went up curbs, most of the time you would hit it really hard and bounce into the air, and another difference was turning. Today, if you want to turn your vehicle, you have to also be moving forwards or backwards. This is very realistic because that's how cars work in real life, but back then, you could just spin your car in circles without moving, which could lead to some pretty funny moments. Sound effects today are much different than they used to be, so here is a few examples. In Bloxburg, if you get out of bed, the sheets will become messy, and you have to make your bed to fix it. But in 2016, you could get in and out of your bed as much as you wanted, and it would never get messy. Depending on your avatar, your feet could also stick through the sheets while you were sleeping, which is off topic, but kinda funny. There is a large variety of vehicles in Bloxburg, but in 2016 there were only 4 vehicles you could choose from. Those vehicles were the mountain bike, moped, classic motorcycle, and Blockster DLX2. Cars were not a thing yet, and they wouldn't get added until 0.3.4. There are tons of items in build mode, but in the past, there were way less. Here's some examples. We went from 3 counter types to 18 counter types, 42 if you also count the counters in each set. We went from 13 kitchen items to 60, 28 lighting items to 148, 11 chairs to 46, 6 beds to 34, and 58 decoration items to 505. And that doesn't even include sets. All these items were definitely needed though, because almost every server has insanely detailed builds now. Since we're talking about build mode related changes, let's talk about the UI. As of right now, our tools are on the right side of the screen, but around 5 years ago, the tools were at the bottom of the screen. As you can see, there are 4 settings: placement grid, ignore collisions, current floor, and hide blocking objects. If you look closely though, there's only 3 buttons for the current floor setting, which leads us onto number 15. There used to only be 3 floors in Bloxburg, and it stayed like this until October of 2019. Now you can build up to 5 floors if you have the multiple floor game pass, which is very helpful for people that like to build on hills. Something that I personally used to do all the time was hang glide onto people's plots while they were in build mode. Back when this was still possible, you could fly over people's plots and land on top of their build mode barrier, and whenever they looked up, they could see you standing there. It was really funny because no one ever expected someone to be on top of their barriers, but unfortunately it got patched and now the barrier goes above the height of hang gliders. Bloxburg is heavily influenced off The Sims, and one way you can see this is through the style of the old mood menu. Here's The Sims, and here's Bloxburg. Bloxburg would take a picture from your Roblox profile and use it as an image. This looked really good, but it had an issue. Sometimes Bloxburg was not able to get a picture of your profile, so instead it would show you this obnoxious white box. It was most likely due to Roblox loading issues, but I bet this is one of the reasons why we no longer have a cool profile picture. Textures have changed a lot since the release of Bloxburg, and one of the biggest changes was the marble texture. The city hall uses a lot of marble, so let's use it as a comparison. This is what it looks like now, and this is what it used to look like. This old marble texture definitely catches your eye a bit more. The delete game data button was definitely a dangerous button for people that didn't understand it. The button would erase all of your money, plots, and job levels, then kick you out of the game. Once you rejoined, you would have a fresh start with nothing but a few $1,000s and an old starter house. It's probably a good thing that this button isn't around today, because I bet there would be a lot of people that would trick others into pressing it. Since the Bloxburg map used to be way smaller than it is now, that meant there were less locations, and one of those locations was the observatory. And no, not this observatory, the old observatory. Fun fact, there was no tunnel that went through the mountain, and there wasn't even a place to put a building on the mountain in the first place. The lighting in Bloxburg has changed a lot over the years due to quality updates in-game and on Roblox, which means 2016 looked way better than it does now. Here's a few examples. This is the old pizza delivery arrow, and here's the current arrow. This is what the nightclub used to look like, and this is what it looks like now. And these wall lamps used to have tons of glow, but now they don't even glow at all. Everything also used to be less vibrant, which makes old Bloxburg footage feel very nostalgic. Today, if you need to bake food in an oven, you can just put it in and walk away until it finishes. But before all of the cooking updates came, you would have to stand in front of your oven for the entire baking process. It was definitely a bit annoying, but we don't have to deal with it anymore, so problem solved. You might be wondering why there's a candy bucket on this list, but it's actually a lot older than you think. It was added in 0.5.7, but got removed from the Halloween event in 2020, which means no one else has been able to get it for over 3.5 years. If you have them in your inventory though, you have a rare item and you should take care of it. Very few people know this, but there used to never be a mood button in the menu. Instead, the moods would automatically open once you pressed on the character icon. The reason nobody knows this is because the mood button was added only a month after the release of the game, and around that time there were only a few hundred people playing Bloxburg. Character customization wasn't added until 0.5.0, and once that update released, you had to use a wardrobe or dresser to access the customization menu, but that was not the original plan. There used to be a grayed out customization button in the character menu, which meant the developers were probably going to allow you to customize your character anywhere, but obviously that didn't happen. The reason this is not very known is because even old players didn't really pay much attention to this button because it didn't work. And that was 25 things only old Bloxburg players remember. Make sure to comment how many you knew. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. But that's it from me, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.